Welcome aboard. This is Q60 to East Midtown and 2nd Avenue. Next stop, 109th Avenue and 157th Street. This stop is 109th Avenue and 157th Street. Next stop, Sutphin Boulevard and 109th Avenue. This stop is Sutphin Boulevard and 109th Avenue. Next stop, Sutphin Boulevard and Yates Road. This stop is Sutphin Boulevard and Yates Road. Next stop, Sutphin Boulevard and Tuskegee Airman Way. This stop is Sutphin Boulevard and Tuskegee Airman Way. Next stop, Sutphin Boulevard and Liberty Avenue. Transfer available to Q83. This stop is Sutphin Boulevard and Liberty Avenue. Next stop, Sutphin Boulevard and 95th Avenue. This stop is Sutphin Boulevard and 95th Avenue. Next stop, Sutphin Boulevard and Archer Avenue. Transfers available to the E, J and Z trains. Long Island Railroad, Air Train, Q6, Q6 Limited, Q20A and B, Q25, Q25 Limited, Q34, Q44 SBS, Q65 and Q65 Limited. This stop is Sutphin Boulevard and Archer Avenue. Next stop, Jamaica Avenue and 144th Street. This stop is Jamaica Avenue and 144th Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and Jamaica Avenue. Transfers available to the E and F trains. This stop is Queens Boulevard and Jamaica Avenue. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 87th Avenue. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 87th Avenue. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 86th Avenue. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 86th Avenue. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and Main Street. This stop is Queens Boulevard and Main Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and Hoover Avenue. This stop is Queens Boulevard and Hoover Avenue. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 82nd Avenue. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 82nd Avenue. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and Union Turnpike. Transfers available to the E and F trains. Q46 and Q46 Limited. This stop is Queens Boulevard and Union Turnpike. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 78th Avenue. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 78th Avenue. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 76th Road. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 76th Road. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 75th Avenue. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 75th Avenue. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 72nd Drive. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 72nd Drive. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 72nd Avenue. Transfers available to the E, F, M and R trains. Q23 and Q64. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 72nd Avenue. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 108th Street. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 108th Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 70th Avenue. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 70th Avenue. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 68th Drive. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 68th Drive. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 67th Road. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 67th Road. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 67th Avenue. Transfers available to the M and R trains. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 67th Avenue. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 65th Avenue. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 65th Avenue. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 63rd Drive. Transfer available to Q72. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 63rd Drive. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 62nd Drive. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 62nd Drive. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 59th Avenue. Transfers available to the M and R trains. Q11, Q21, Q29, Q38, Q38 Limited. Q52 SBS, Q53 SBS, Q59 and Q88. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 59th Avenue. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 56th Avenue. Transfers available to Q53 SBS, Q58, Q58 Limited and Q59. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 56th Avenue. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and Reeder Street. This stop is Queens Boulevard and Reeder Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and Van Loon Street. This stop is Queens Boulevard and Van Loon Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and Cornish Avenue. This stop is Queens Boulevard and Cornish Avenue. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 74th Street. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 74th Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 70th Street. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 70th Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 69th Street. Transfer available to Q47. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 69th Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 65th Place. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 65th Place. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 63rd Street. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 63rd Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 60th Street. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 60th Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 58th Street. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 58th Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 55th Street. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 55th Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 52nd Street. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 52nd Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 48th Street. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 48th Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 45th Street. Transfer available to the 7 train. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 45th Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 41st Street. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 41st Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 39th Street. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 39th Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 38th Street. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 38th Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 35th Street. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 35th Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and 33rd Street. This stop is Queens Boulevard and 33rd Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and Skillman Avenue. This stop is Queens Boulevard and Skillman Avenue. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and Queens Plaza East. Transfers available to the E, M, N, Q, R, W and 7 trains. Q39, Q66, Q69, Q100 Limited, Q101 and B62. This stop is Queens Boulevard and Queens Plaza East. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and North 29th Street. This stop is Queens Boulevard and North 29th Street. Next stop, Queens Boulevard and North 27th Street. This stop is Queens Boulevard and North 27th Street. Next stop, East 60th Street and 2nd Avenue. Transfers available to the BM1, BM2, BM3, BM4, BM5, M31, M15, M15 SBS, M57 and Q101. This stop is East 60th Street and 2nd Avenue. Please exit through the rear door.